maybe you have a well-oiled fulfillment operation and you'd prefer to ship orders out to customers directly and not have Amazon fulfill those orders. It is, from an economic standpoint, understandable you'd want to do that. But from a sales standpoint and conversion standpoint, having your products be Prime eligible cannot be overstated how important that is to a customer.
This is the E-Commerce Braintrust, a podcast about building momentum online for established consumer brands. Join our hosts and their expert guests for high-level conversations about e-commerce strategies, trends, and innovations. Access our Braintrust and boost your brand's e-commerce potential.
Hello and welcome back to the E-Commerce Braintrust podcast. I'm your host, Kiri Masters, and I'm on the mic solo today talking about the cost of selling on Amazon's Seller Central. So I wanted to get on and talk about this topic because I know that many people listening to the show are very familiar with Seller Central. That's your primary way of selling, and you've been doing it for a long time. This episode probably isn't for you in that case. I'm really putting this episode together in response to rumors from Amazon about them culling a number, perhaps around 1,000 of vendors from their Vendor Central platform, and with the ultimate goal of moving them over to Seller Central or to a singular platform, which is self-serve, rather than keeping them on Vendor Central. So there is, Amazon has not confirmed this. They have actually come back in response to some news reports from Bloomberg specifically saying that that information wasn't true. But based on what I have heard from clients and people at Amazon and just sort of reading the tea leaves, I certainly believe that this is true and that smaller vendors will be cut from Vendor Central and will need to move onto a self-serve platform, whether that's Seller Central in its current incarnation or a combined channel like that. I just believe that to be true because running a PO-based system with high capital requirements, like this is Amazon purchasing this inventory, whereas on the marketplace, they're just taking a cut of all the sales. It's a very capital intensive program. And, it requires more headcount to actually manage a brand on Vendor Central than you would require on Seller Central, which is completely self-serve. So if you're in this position, you're a smaller vendor, you're feeling a little nervous about all of these rumors and everything, then this show is definitely for you, as well as if you're a brand that's not currently selling on Amazon or you're not as familiar with the basics of Seller Central and how it works and how the fees are calculated. Before we jump into the topic today, I need to give credit where credit is due, and that is to one of the project managers at Bobsled Marketing, Jordan Ripley, who actually put a great blog post together for us at bobsledmarketing.com about Amazon Seller Central fees. And also Jordan worked with another member of our team, Sergey, to put together this fantastic fee calculator, which you can add your SKUs into this calculator along with the retail price, the dimensions of the product, the weight of the product, and it will calculate what your Amazon fees are going to be line item by line item. And this is when we get into the conversation, you'll see this is a really critical part of thinking about Seller Central is what are my fees, both my selling fees and my fulfillment fees, going to be if I start selling through Seller Central. So thank you so much, Jordan, for putting all of that content together and that incredible fee calculator, which has been in high demand for a very long time. And it just required a lot of, elbow grease to sit down and put a really detailed, accurate calculator together. So thank you to Jordan and Sergey for working on that. So what I want to cover off today is just comparing Seller Central with Vendor Central at a high level with the general differences. And then we're going to get into fees specifically and talk about the different fees on Seller Central versus Vendor Central. So first up, just comparing Seller Central with Vendor Central. Seller Central is where you're selling as a third party. It's also known as 3P, as in third party, on the Amazon marketplace via this program called Seller Central, which is a platform. Vendor Central is selling via a wholesale model to Amazon retail, which then turns around and sells that product as a first party or 1P on the marketplace. So how you can tell the difference when you're looking at an Amazon product listing is either says ships and sold by Amazon, or it says ships and sold by a different merchant, or sold by a merchant and fulfilled by Amazon. So if you're ships and sold by Amazon, then you're a first party. So the main differences there is around fulfillment. And essentially in most cases, but not all cases, Amazon is purchasing inventory from a brand via purchase order, taking possession of that inventory, storing it in their warehouses, and then fulfilling each order as it comes through from customers. And then, they will have different payment terms with each vendor, but you'd either get paid 60 or 90 days following that PO being filled. So that is sort of a traditional wholesale model. Amazon's taking care of logistics, customer service, pricing, a whole bunch of other stuff. It's very traditional, like selling to a retail store or a distributor, for example. Seller Central, on the other hand, the brand is making a lot more decisions around how items going to be fulfilled. Are you going to use Amazon's fulfillment network, or are you going to fulfill orders directly from your own warehouse or facility? You are handling a lot more of the customer service. You are setting the pricing. So in some ways, there's a little bit more work, but it also means there's a lot more control that you can have over pricing in particular. And that's a big reason why many brands, regardless of this vendor cull that appears to be coming, they want to move to Seller Central just for the luxury of being able to price their products how they want to, so they can avoid channel conflict. And it's just not possible to really control pricing if you're a vendor. So that's one big sort of benefit of Seller Central. And then the final big difference is around fees and margins. And this is what I'm going to dive into in a lot more detail. So as a third-party seller on Seller Central, the most common fees you'll encounter are referral fees, fulfillment fees, and storage fees. So referral fees are inescapable. Doesn't matter if you handle everything. You're going to pay, depending on the product category, usually around 15% of the selling price to Amazon, sort of as a commission for using their platform. So, Amazon, one of the most trafficked websites in the world, has amazing conversion rate optimization, swathes of engineers keeping the site working, processing payments, all of that stuff. You're paying that usually 15%, but it can be lower in some categories. You're paying that amount for the luxury of being on Amazon's platform and getting in front of their customers. So that is something that comes right off the top of the retail price that you're selling for. The next major bucket of fees is fulfillment fees. So using Amazon's fulfillment network benefits you with immediate Prime eligibility. And this is important. Maybe you have a well-oiled fulfillment operation and you'd prefer to ship orders out to customers directly and not have Amazon fulfill those orders. It is, from an economic standpoint, understandable you'd want to do that. But from a sales standpoint and conversion standpoint, having your products be Prime eligible cannot be overstated how important that is to a customer. Many, many customers will completely disregard any product on Amazon that doesn't have Prime eligibility. They're filtering all that out. They want the convenience of Prime. They want the fast, free shipping element of Prime. They want the security of knowing that Amazon sort of, it seems like an endorsement by Amazon to have that Prime badge. So while you might save a few dollars here and there on fulfillment fees, I've never ever seen an instance where sales don't pick up after a brand has moved to their items being Prime eligible. So this is, a really important thing to consider while you're looking at the fees and the cost of doing all this stuff. Also think about, what kind of impact is this going to have on your conversion rate as well, and ultimately sales. So back to the fulfillment fees bucket, the biggest component of these is the fulfillment fee to pick, pack, and ship the product to the end consumer via Amazon's program called Fulfillment by Amazon, or FBA. So to assess the FBA fee, Amazon measures the size of your fully packaged product, assigns it to one of their predetermined sizing categories based on the resulting package weight and dimensions, and then charges a flat rate based on that sizing tier. So if you have a small, like a cell phone case, I think is the example Amazon uses in their price descriptions, then that would be considered small package FBA. And then if you're selling a sweater, then that would be assessed under a different pricing tier, etc., all the way up to like oversized, LCD TVs and things like that. That's an important part of the calculator that we put together, is looking at the dimensions and weights of each SKU, because that will assign you to a pricing tier, and then you'll know what the FBA fee will be for that. Final major fee under using FBA or Seller Central is storage fees. So not only does Amazon charge the cost of picking, packing, and shipping your product to the end consumer if you're using FBA, they also charge you for the privilege of having your product sit on their warehouse shelves. Totally understandable. This is very valuable space for Amazon. They really don't want brands to be using their fulfillment centers as long-term storage warehouses. And that's why they're called fulfillment centers, not warehouses in Amazon terminology. So assuming that you're managing your inventory appropriately and you're not letting things sit out in the fulfillment centers for eons, this should be a relatively small portion of your fees when compared with the other ones, but it's still important to calculate nonetheless. And this becomes especially true if you have large products with low inventory turns. So how Amazon calculates this is your total volume in storage. They compute a daily average volume for the month, and then assess a fee per cubic foot of storage based on that volume. So fees can range from as low as 48 cents per cubic foot to as high as $2.40 during peak holiday times, where that space is even more valuable to Amazon. If you've mishandled your inventory forecasting and managed to have inventory sitting in warehouses for over a year, you'll get slapped with a $6.90 per cubic foot long-term storage fee. So this is why it's really important to be really organized, have your operational checks and balances figured out, know who on your team is doing inventory forecasting, or if you're using a consultant or agency, that knowing what their methodology is, so that you don't get these long-term storage fees, because they can be significant if you've got inventory there for over a year. This is not an exhaustive list of fees. There are fees outside of the above three that I just mentioned that you can encounter as an FBA seller, but these are generally the ones that you can expect to pay on every order that is sold. So let's talk briefly about Vendor Central and just how that compares. So selling as a first-party vendor means what you're really paying for is the margin difference between the retail price and the wholesale price. And this is not technically a fee. This is just gross revenue that you would otherwise have received if you're selling on Amazon as a seller or a 3P seller, rather than selling that product to Amazon via wholesale purchase orders at their negotiated price. So Amazon negotiates terms with vendors annually. And let's say you have a $20 item and Amazon was previously going to pay you $10 for that. But then in their annual negotiations, Amazon was very aggressive and they said, no, we're only going to pay $9 for this item. You should also be thinking about what that margin difference is going to be if you were selling that product for $20 on Amazon Seller Central using FBA. So this is, not technically a fee again, but this is a cost of using the Vendor Central platform. Other fees to consider: marketing development funds or MDF, co-op fees, and damage allowances. These are all additional fees that Amazon charges as a percentage of the accepted wholesale costs of the products you sell to Amazon. Amazon says that these fees cover the various costs that they incur for managing their marketplace platform, like running marketing campaigns, managing all customer service and fulfillment for the products that they buy. It's important to note that, just because Amazon says that they're running marketing campaigns doesn't mean that they are running ads for you. You still need to be spending money on advertising. You still need to be optimizing product listings yourself. It's not like they take care of all, they're using all available marketing channels to promote you. They want you to spend more in marketing dollars on top of their MDF fees. So there's within this bucket of co-op MDF damage allowances, there is some variance to these based on your negotiated rate with the Amazon vendor team, which again comes up annually, but they can easily be over 15% for some brands selling to Amazon retail. So again, highly dependent on the brand, on the category, other factors, how much bargaining chips you have with Amazon to negotiate, but they can be over 15%. And then finally, the chargebacks. So this is the catch-all bucket for various Amazon fees that they assess for not complying with their stringent list of operational requirements. These fees are deducted from your payments and can quickly add up if they're not frequently monitored and contested. And this is something that we at Bobsled spend a lot of time doing for our vendor clients, is contesting fees. And there could be tens of thousands of dollars of fees that are able to be recovered because Amazon, a lot of their systems are automated, and they may have, classified something as being not received in a purchase order, and it was. And if you can procure evidence to say, yes, no, we definitely sent in 100 units, even though you said you only got 90, and here's proof of that, that's money that you can claim back. So this is one of the most common costs of selling on Amazon, regardless of the method. So let's move on to just quickly talking about this revenue calculator that we've developed. As Jordan mentioned in his blog post here, the best way to calculate your Amazon fees depends whether the product is already live on Amazon, how many products you need to analyze, and whether you're selling that product already in your seller central account, in which case you can get a lot more relevant information. There's a couple of ways that you can do this. Amazon has its own revenue calculator online, which we'll link up to in the show notes here, but they can give you you can search Amazon's catalog for existing products and see what the FBA fees would be for that product. The downside of this method is that the product already needs to be in Amazon's catalog, and you need to do one product at a time. Second methodology, using the payments report. So this works if you're already a seller and you're already shipping orders. You can always view what fees you're already being charged per individual order by going to the payments report and entering the order ID number, find a transaction. You can understand exactly what you've been charged for every order that you've come through. So this is obviously highly accurate. It's what you've actually been charged, but you need to do one at a time. So it can be quite cumbersome to audit a number of products at a time. The third methodology is the fee preview report. Again, you need to be already selling on Seller Central to do this, but you can pull a report that estimates the referral and fulfillment fees for your existing entire catalog. And you do that by going to reports, fulfillment, and then fee preview. So this is a great report that you can get because you can look at your entire catalog, but the downside is that the product has to have all the information already entered into Seller Central, like the dimensions and weights and the sale price and everything. So it won't, if you're looking at adding products to your catalog, then you won't be able to see them in this report. Jordan also noted that it often shows fees that are different from the actual fee charged when the product sells, so it's not entirely accurate. And then finally, looking at all these different ways to assess what kind of fees you're going to be charged, we realized there was an opportunity to provide something a bit more helpful, and that's with our own automated fee calculator. It's an Excel spreadsheet. You put your product SKU by SKU, add your product catalog information in there. I mean, you do need the information of the selling price, dims and weights, things like that. But you can get estimated fees for a very large volume of products by using our fee calculator. So the downside of our calculator is we're only looking at the sort of standard FBA fees, which is standard Seller Central fees, so the referral fees, fulfillment, and monthly storage fees. We don't look at things like fees if you were going to enroll in lesser used programs like the Small and Light program. We don't look at long-term storage fees because that's kind of up to you to inventory, to plan your inventory correctly and avoid those. We don't look at removal or return fees. So to be fair, neither do any of the other tools that I just mentioned to you, but we've just found there's too much variation if we're looking at things like long-term storage fees, which are really sort of up to the brand to avoid. So just a final note on this process. This is not a one and done kind of process. Amazon changes their fees periodically throughout the year. Amazon can also sort of move your product into a different category. Sometimes they update the product dimensions and they're not accurate and you need to dispute that because it can cause you to pay an incorrect fee for a product that, you've already been selling for a long time at a certain threshold. So you can't just do this and then forget about it for 5 years. I would suggest revisiting this at least every 6 months and looking at doing an audit of what fees you're being charged, what you should have been charged, and, using this as a system to make sure that you're not overpaying on your Seller Central fees. It can also, again, be used if you're considering moving to Seller Central from Vendor Central, or if you're new to Amazon looking at, well, what's all this going to cost me, then you'll have a pretty good idea once you add your catalog into this fee calculator. So I hope this overview is helpful. There is still the idea of brands being culled from Vendor Central to Seller Central has not been confirmed by Amazon. Like I said, I think that it's likely to happen, but it's worthwhile, just periodically considering, are we in the best channel on Amazon based on profitability, access to our customer data? There's some data you get on Seller Central that you can't on Vendor Central, for example, and channel conflict that can arise by not being able to control your price. There's lots of different reasons, and I think it's worthwhile continually reassessing the channel that you're selling on to make sure that it's really serving your brand and what your objectives are. I will add to the show notes the link to this blog post that Jordan wrote, as well as a link to our fee calculator, which should be a really helpful resource to you as you're working through these steps. And I wanted to let you know about a new project I'm working on, which is my second book. I'm actually co-authoring a book this time with one of my friends and media experts, Mark Power from Podian, and we're co-authoring a book called Amazon for CMOs. And it's pretty much exactly what it sounds like. This is Amazon strategies and insights for senior level retail executives. What we've done is distill our experience working with brands, both small and very, very large Fortune 500 brands, into a book for executives to get a sense of what's going on within Amazon. What can we learn about their leadership principles and the way that they make decisions? What are their frameworks for deciding what to work on, how to prioritize things? We've also talked with a dozen CMOs and retail executives from CPG brands to get their take on what makes a successful Amazon channel, what they've done within their brands, where Amazon fits within their organization, how do they innovate. So we've really tried to take a voice of the industry as well as our experience working with these brands as consultants. So this book is going to launch in early September, and if you'd like to learn more about the book and be on the mailing list for when this first launches, so you can get it for free when it first launches on Amazon, go to amazonforcmos.com. That's amazonforcmos.com.